Good morning and afternoon. It's Wednesday, 9 a.m. Pacific. Welcome all, I'm Kane, and today I'm joined with David, better known as the Workday Sharing Guy. Also joining us is Denise, Logan, and special guests. Welcome to the Sharing Show.
Kane, can you please tell us a little bit more about Zoom?
Absolutely. So you will find that we're using Zoom today to host this sharing show. And at the bottom, you should be able to select chat so you can interact with everybody on the panel today. So please feel free to interact. Just make sure you select all attendees when you're posting your chat conversation. So without further ado, I think I'm ready to pass this over to you guys to take us into the first Kahoot.
Thank you, Kane. Today, we'll be doing our survey Kahoot here first thing this morning. If you open a browser on your phone or other device and go to kahoot.it, we'll be all set.
Denise, it's asking me for a pin.
Okay, we'll have our pin in just a moment. Okay, so our pin for this morning is 632921. You'll put in your pin and then add your name. All right, here we go. There's 3 questions this morning.
Which cities in Europe have you visited? So put red if you've been to Prague, Munich, or Dublin, regardless of the rest. Now, if you haven't been to Prague or Munich or Dublin, go blue if you've been to Stockholm, Copenhagen, or Warsaw. If you haven't been to any of those, yellow would be if you've been to London, Paris, or Amsterdam. If you haven't been to any of these European cities, put green. Okay, so the winner, sort of, is London, Paris, and Amsterdam, but several people have not been to any of those cities. Second place for the cities would be Prague, Munich, and Dublin. All right, that's helpful as we start thinking about next year. Are you live or plan to go live on manager or employee self-service? So you're live or planning on going live with only manager self-service or only employee self-service would be blue. If you're planning on or live on both, yellow, and if you are not live on either, put green. Okay, it looks like just about everyone is live with both manager or employee self-service or planning on going live with both. Some are doing only employee self-service. Last question, regardless if you have been to Europe, pick your favorite drink for after your workday: water, with or without gas, coffee, beer or wine, or blah. Okay, wow, 3 people said blah, which surprises me. I'm laughing. A fair amount of beer and wine, and then water and coffee, probably not at the end of the day for most. You'll hear more about blah and our European adventures. So thank you, everybody. This is what we call survey Kahoot. There were no correct answers. It's just getting surveys of those on the line.
And what do we have up next on the agenda?
Up next, we have David, the Workday Sharing Guy.
Hi, everybody. So this is David, the Workday Sharing Guy. I am no longer a Workday employee. That's my handshake agreement with Workday to make sure that people understand I'm not representing Workday in any way. I just have a fair amount of Workday experience, 12 years. I was employee 149. Also, everybody, when they're presenting, they're just sharing. This is not training. It's knowledge sharing, customers sharing with each other. For training, I highly recommend the Workday training. Nobody is representing anything other than themselves. We go in first name only here on the sharing show. I'm just David, and then there's, people might work at companies, but we're all just sharing with each other. It's for knowledge. I want to point out that we don't put it on the agenda, but after the show, it's been quite popular for people to hang out for a little bit, depending on the shares and asks that come up during the show. We open up the microphones. The chat lines are always open. Make sure you put in the chat that you chat to everybody. We're going to have some asks, several asks this time, and use the chat during the show, but no audio. So at the very end, we open up the audio for all to share with each other at the end of the show proper.
Thank you, David. And what do we have next on the agenda?
Up next on the agenda is our fun photos of the month.
All right, this is David again. Several fun photos from this month. These are all pictures from the European Share-a-thon Marathon, which was 3 cities all in 1 week, 4 different days of share-a-thons in Prague and in London and in Amsterdam, and 2 days in Prague, and then 1 day each in London and Amsterdam. But during those share-a-thons, there were also 1-hour remote share-a-thons. So we had 4 different 1-hour remote share-a-thons with people all around the world. And the upper left is the group from Prague. Directly to the right of that is the Workday office in Amsterdam. There isn't much signage, but on the building there is a mail slot there. And then to the furthest right up top is the group we had in Amsterdam. Below that is at the Warwick. There was several people trying to get in. You'll see we only had a certain number of chairs. So at the bottom in the middle, that's our group from London. And on the outside right, just lots of people deciding just to enjoy the beverages instead of trying to stand in the room. And then the bottom left is a picture of, once I returned to Amsterdam, the largest selection of VLA that was available. I have several VLA stories, including doing a VLA-only diet on Saturday in the middle of the 1-week Share-a-thon Marathon. They don't have VLA in America, so I've had several fun VLA stories that I will share probably on LinkedIn instead of taking up time here on the sharing show.
And what asks do we have this month?
This month we have 3 asks. Our first ask is with Dorina from Amsterdam, and then we have an ask from Charlene from California and an ask from Deborah from the UK.
Okay, so Dorina, you're first.
Good morning, everyone. Morning for you, afternoon for me. My question and ask for today's session is best approaches on user adoption. How do you use management self-service and employee self-service, and how do you embrace this within your teams?
And Dorina, are you yourself currently live with both employee self-service and manager self-service?
Yeah, we do use it, but we're looking for ways that employees get more engaged into it. And we're moving more and more processes towards employee self-service and definitely management self-service.
Okay, so the chat lines are open. Once again, make sure to change the default so it sends to everybody. And then Dorina, I saw a chat message from you, so you should be able to watch the chat. And then also Dorina,
Yep.
I don't know if you were on, but we, at the half hour in 20 minutes, we have an open mic, and so then people could openly talk about their comments for best approaches for user adoption.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dorina. And Charlene, you've been introduced.
Hi, everybody. How are you today?
Yes.
So my ask is, how do you solve for recruiters not merging the candidates? We've had some issues where it's just a forgotten step or a to-do, or I didn't know about that kind of thing. Or we've had some security issues with recruiters seeing terminated employees, but when they can, if they've not done the merge of the candidate, any options? We're having the negative impact on some IT that, they've already got an account for somebody, duplicate socials that affect benefits and payroll. I know that at some point in recruiting you've passed the point of no return where you can't go back further in the recruiting process to get a merge done. So if anybody has any great ideas, I'd appreciate them.
Thanks, Charlene. That was a great ask. If anybody has any shares for Charlene, please put them in the chat. Just make sure you're chatting to everyone and not just the hosts or the presenter or the panelists. And up next, we'll have Deborah with her ask.
Hi guys. Yeah, I was at the London Share-a-thon last week, which was great and really great experience for me. And following up on that, we're organising a couple of Share-a-thon WebExes, which are specifically around calc fields. So we're going to organise one for novices like me, and one for a more advanced level. And we're looking to schedule those probably in the second half of September, and we're wondering if everyone on the call would be interested in joining. So either the novice or the advanced or both. And if you could let me know in the chat, that'd be great, so we know sort of numbers and that kind of thing. We're looking to schedule this for a time that works both in the States and in Europe. So it's probably going to be starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in UK time, so it's 3 o'clock European time, 9 a.m. Eastern time, I think that is. And we're going to do one on a Tuesday and one on a Thursday, either the 3rd or the 4th week of September. If you could let us know if you are interested, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. I'll add here what people are looking at are 2 different screenshots from community. And one of them is the first and only so far calculated field share-a-thon was back in November. And this was posted by George, who I sat next to at lunch at Rising. And he said, well, why don't we have a share-a-thon for Calc Fields? And the idea was to split the group into 2, novice and advanced, and give one day in between, so a Tuesday, Thursday. I realized then that people might not know what the difference is between novice and advanced as far as content. And in novice, we stay away from any of the business object calculated fields. So lookup related value, extract single instance, those are not covered in the first calculated field, or we try to stay away from them as far as shares. So I have an interview question on community. You'll see it here on the right. Interview question number 4 might help you see a little bit more about what the difference is between novice and advanced. So thank you again, Deborah, for this. We look forward to calculated field share-a-thon in September. A little bit more background was in all 4 share-a-thons, one of the highest votes was there's advanced reporting, dashboards, and calculated fields. Those 3 topics all had the highest votes. And we're pretty pressed for time there in London, so we didn't really get to do much. But this is going to be 2 hours to 2.5 hours, perhaps, in 2 days. So it gives us a good focus of 4 to 5 hours on calc fields. So go ahead and in the chat, mention your vote if you would like to go to both. Any other input you have on timing.
That's great. Thanks so much. And what do we have up next on the agenda?
Up next, we have this month's share with Carl from Sweden.
Thanks, and hi everyone. Greetings from Stockholm. I would like to share a few tips and tricks related to comp reviews that we have learned along the way. And the first one is very simple, but maybe not obvious. And it is that you can add help texts in the panel next to the grid, as you see in the screenshot on the right-hand side. And to add some context here, you can go back to the, thanks. To add some context, in our case, we had employees that, due to recent comp changes, were not eligible for a merit increase, but should still be a part of the process since we also included promotions and equity. And these employees, they were shown with the 0 as target, as you see in the screenshot on the left-hand side, which of course could be a bit confusing for managers. So we simply want to guide the manager. So when they mark the employee in the grid, they would see this text in the panel, but only for employees with 0 as target. So this is how we built it. So in the grid, I added an evaluate expression calc field that returned a text constant containing the text if true and otherwise an empty string. And with this setup, it only appears for employees with 0 as target. And of course, if you would like to have the same text for all employees, then you would only need to create a text constant field and add that one to the grid. And this is just one example, but I think it's a good addition to the regular help text at the top. And you could also be creative and use this to add like headlines in the panel if you would like.
And Carl, I'm just going to add here for those who don't know how to recalculate fields, on the top it says evaluate expression, which is essentially an if then else logic. So if a condition over here, a Boolean condition, if that condition is true, then the value that's shown on the right is what comes out. And then the else part shows in the middle here as a default value, which is just empty string.
So the second thing is about validations. And I think comp review validations are very, very useful, especially since you can add both warnings and error messages. But there is a limitation that you cannot add new validations if there is an in-progress event. You could, however, modify existing rules, even though the process is already initiated. So you might want to consider adding dummy rules that is never triggered, both as critical and warnings, in case you will need to add new validations later on, just to keep flexibility. And when you create these dummy rules, you could just add a statement such as 0 is equal to 1 or anything else that is always false.
So this is something you've done. You add a couple of dummy rules here just in case you need them, right? A nice little tip, right? Somebody made a good comment for you in the chat.
So the last tip is about adding custom reports as embedded analytics. So in our case, we had a lot of managers asking to see all the remaining pools for all their organizations in the same view as when they propose awards. So I ended up creating a report that sum total spend and then remaining merit, additional adjustment and promotion pools, as well as the total remaining pool. So the report itself is mostly built upon arithmetic calculation fields that are pretty straightforward to build. And we also added this report to a comp review dashboard, so managers could keep track of it after submission as well. But having it embedded definitely improves the user experience. So that was my share. Hope you find it useful.
Carl, I saw a few comments in the chat thanking you for your tips. And the other thing I'll say, Carl, are you available after the half hour? We'll probably end the show a little bit early, and we open up the microphones early if we get to that point. But do you have to drop on the half hour in approximately 8 minutes? Or are you available if people have questions?
I can stay, definitely.
Okay, all right. And I forgot to ask the other guests the same questions, but we'll just open up the microphones. And one reason is we should be able to allow you to actually share your screen if you're not showing data. We don't record once we get into the open mic, but some people might want to look closer at your reports or some of the things you shared. So feel free to make comments in the chat if you want to take a closer look at anything that Carl has shared. And we're close to wrapping up here.
Great share, Carl. Thank you. Let's see who will make the podium this month with our quiz Kahoot. So just remember, we're just going to open up the kahoot.it in a browser. These questions will have a right or wrong answer. You may have to refresh to put in the new pin. So we'll get started.
All right. So there'll be one right answer, unlike the surveys. And the winner is somebody at the end. We'll see points.
So our pin is 82405.
All right, one of those
405.
One of those strange 5-digit pins. 82405. Okay, here we go. Good luck, everybody. An evaluated expression calculated field is most like a Boolean expression, an if then else, a loop through a list, or an evaluate an English expression, such as you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make a drink. That didn't all fit into the button. There's one right answer here. Most people got it right. An evaluate expression is like an if then else, or if else if else if else if list, and then else at the end. There is a Boolean expression in it, but that's just a true false calc field, not an evaluate expression. Okay, Carl, you knew that one well. You're 1 point ahead of KML, who's 1 point ahead of Michael, who's 4 points ahead of Tom, who's 2 points ahead of Anthony. It's very close here. The second of 3 questions. If recruiters do not merge candidates, what's going to happen? There could be duplicate records in Workday. There could be duplicate records in Active Directory. There could be duplicate records in payroll and benefit systems. All of the above. Okay, that went by very quickly, but it looks like almost half got the answer right. There could be duplicate records in Workday, of course, but all of the above is what was important to read on past the first question. I mean, the first potential answer. So where are we now? Priscilla, KT, Rick D, Deborah, and Apurv, all within 100 and some points from each other, but the top are within 10 or so. Got some votes for Priscilla. Which area of the world was not represented with a guest on today's show? Sweden, Czech Republic, UK, or Netherlands? And for those who know flags, I think you've got kind of a pretty darn good hint here on the answer. Although you might have thought it was confusing or a trick. Okay, most people got this right as well. Czech Republic. We did have 2-day share-a-thon in Prague, but we did not have a share today from Czech Republic. Let's see who made the podium. Priscilla, you're on top. Congratulations. Quite a large separation there between you and Deborah second, and then Rick D, very close, only 3 points behind Deborah. So thank you, everybody. I could see in the chat some questions. We'll come to the chat. We have time for some open mic, so before the half hour ends, actually, so we could address some of the questions in the chat, like how do you get points? Right, you get points by getting the answer right. So Kane, why don't you do a wrap up here so everybody's aware of this YouTube channel?
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. And thank you, David. Thank you, Denise, Logan, and especially all the special guests. There was a lot of good asks there that we heard from earlier. As always, and as David just mentioned, we do post the recording of the show onto our YouTube channel. And you'll also be able to find all the other episodes if you've missed any on there as well. So all that's left for me to say, other than we're coming back to a live mic session in a moment, but for the rest of us, have a great work day.